Welcome. Thank you very much for coming. For those of you who don't know, Patrick is, as you can see, not here. He is over there on the screen because, unfortunately, he timed it really, really well, or actually the virus timed it really well. He's got COVID. He tested positive this morning, so it's really sad because I'm sure he was really, really looking forward to seeing all of you here finally in 3D rather than on a screen, because this is one of the most exciting things, of course, about this meeting, other than this is sort of feels like a launch of the whole program, of course. So I'm really, really excited to see you. I'm Birgitta, Gatersleben, just in case. So there's obviously a few people on screen there, so we'll have more interactive sessions. But I just wanted to say, welcome. Thank you very much for coming in person or on screen. Thank you very much for contributing to this. Thank you very much for all the work that everybody's put into the project so far already. I really still quite in shock how fast everything has gone, because I can remember we put the proposal together last summer. And it was all a bit of a rush, and then suddenly it was launched and it started on the 1st of February, and we've been sort of swept off our feet really ever since then, with lots and lots of meetings, meeting lots and lots of people. I've learned so much already in the last few months. It's amazing, and we're going to learn even more. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here saying other than standing here, other than enjoy yourself. Hopefully you can have a really exciting time. You meet lots of people. There's lots of fabulous activities that have been put together by various people, and I'm just going to hand over to Becky, who's going to do the housekeeping. Very important stuff.
Yeah, just a couple of items, and just to follow on from Birgitta, and to say thank you very much to everybody who's attended. I know you're disappointed that Patrick isn't here, but he is there on the screen. So thank you for coming. Just a couple of items, nothing too important. Just, I'm sure you've all noticed the fire exit here in the event of a fire. Push the door, run outside, and we'll all get together out there. The other thing that you might need over the course of the next couple of days, we've saved a room at the entrance of this building where you first came in and picked up your badges. There's a small seminar room on the right-hand side there, which we set aside in case anybody would like to sort of step out and have a private call or needs to attend another meeting. So do let us know if that's the case. The other thing, we're very, very delighted to have Johnny Glover with us here in the back of the room. He's waving. He is a visual minute taker. He's asked me not to say too much about that, so please feel free to go and talk to him over the next couple of days. But he will be here with us, capturing, instead of sort of taking the old-fashioned notes, word by word of what everybody's saying, he'll be here capturing the sort of main ideas in a visual form for us, which we'll be able to see at the end of the 2 days. The other thing that I'd like to mention is that we do have Kieran Jones here, and he's waving in the back of the room. There. Kieran's from the University Press Office. He will be taking photographs over the next couple of days to sort of upload to various social media sites. He's promised he won't do any close-ups, but if you are worried about being caught in any way, please just either turn your back or let Kieran know that you don't want to be photographed. The other thing that Kieran will be doing for us is live tweeting throughout the event, because we now actually do have the Twitter handle for the project, which has been set up, and as you can see there, it's @_access network. So please do use that today, tomorrow, and going forward. And Kieran has also put together a handle specifically for the assembly over the next couple of days, which is #AccessAssembly22. And hopefully next year it will be 23, and then 24, and going forward. And then finally, for those of you who are joining us for dinner tonight, and hopefully that's most of you, we have arranged for some taxis, because I'm aware that some of you have come straight from this train station and have got luggage. So there are some taxis leaving at 5:45 from this building to take you back to the hotel. If you prefer to walk, because it is absolutely lovely walk back down to the hotel, there will be a few of us who will be able to guide you if you're not quite sure of the way to go. And that's it really. Just hope you all have a wonderful couple of days, and thank you very much for attending. And I'll hand you over to Peter, my colleague, who's going to be doing something special for us, I think.
Great, no pressure. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I think, Becky, did you mention about the event being recorded?
Oh, gosh, thank you.
That's, yes. So this green light here means that the event is being recorded. If at any point you see that green light go out, I'm delegating responsibility, so you can all be on that, and then that will be accessible afterwards. I'm just going to, before I start, just for the people online, because I know it can be, you're just seeing us, I think I can just quickly change the video, so you should be able to see the room. So can everyone in the room give everyone online a wave? There you go. So at least you can kind of get a sense of who's here. Okay, lovely. So I'm going to talk a bit about social capital, and this is an evaluation that we're doing for the Assembly. So at the University of Exeter, I'm not an academic. I run something called the Green Futures Network at the University of Exeter, which is all about increasing access to the environmental and climate work that we do. And my background is in building networks and network theory. And as a key part of the access project is about building this strong partnership between different disciplines and different organisations. I've been supporting the project to think about, well, how do we build that partnership in a way that is strong and thriving and achieves what it needs to do? So I'm going to very briefly sort of touch on a few kind of key core concepts of that, and then I'm going to ask you to complete an evaluation form about the partnership and your perception of it at the beginning, and we'll repeat that at the end. And I've got physical copies and an online version for those joining online. So the key concepts, one is around how do networks function. Networks is a very oft used word, and it's very oft maligned sometimes, and sometimes used to refer to simply a mailing list. But actually what we need, if we do want a strong partnership within Access, is a clear purpose, clear roles for people to be able to inhabit and contribute to what we're doing, and the flexibility to adapt to the project changing over time. Another key part of it is trying to make sure that the partnership or the network is more than the sum of its parts. It's more than just the people who are here and the people that are online, but the coming together of those people creates more value than those people in and of themselves. So the statement I've got here is networks are not their members, they are the movement of value between their members. And that value can be resource, it can be power, it can be information, whatever that might be. So that's kind of the principle behind what I'm trying to do. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is think about your perception of the partnership of Access in a few different ways. And we're purposely doing this at the very beginning before Patrick gives a bit of an overview about Access. And one of these things is around what are the characteristics of, so the characteristics of any kind of network you need in order for it to be able to function, you need at least these three things. So you need shared understanding. So that's an agreement on the purpose of what we're trying to do. So the question here, when I invite you to think about how would you consider the shared understanding of Access, is how much do you feel you share an understanding of the partnership with other members? Another part is trust. So trust is the belief that others are going to act in the best interests of the partnership. So the question here is, when others are acting on behalf of or within the partnership, how much do you trust that they'll prioritise its purpose and its goals? These will all be on the forms I give you, so don't feel like you have to remember all of this. And then the last part is reciprocity, which is really important and the one that's often left out, which is the ability to give and receive value from the partnership. Often we create networks or partnerships that are very good at giving value, but not necessarily that good at receiving it or inviting it from people. But what happens if you have a network like that is people stick around as long as they're getting something from it, but as soon as they got what they need, they'll disappear and go somewhere else. So what we really need is a way for this to be a reciprocal partnership. So how much do you have the opportunity to contribute to the partnership as well as benefit from it? So I'm going to ask you to kind of evaluate your perception of those three characteristics now and at the end of the day, just scoring it 1 to 10, not very complex. But the other part we're going to do, which might take a little bit longer, is thinking about connections. So it's really key that we think about what are the connections that are currently existing within Access, and what are the connections we're trying to create. And we can break them into 3 different categories: bonding, bridging, and linking. So bonding, which is the sort of blue set of circles or nodes on the left-hand side. So this is connections within the same social group or with others who are primarily like you. So that might be, you might consider it to be people who are in the same organisation as you, or you might consider it to be people who are in the same discipline as you. And it is subjective. You might, if you're in the same university as someone else, you might have a bonding connection, but actually if they work in a completely different discipline, you might feel like you've got nothing to do with them and you don't have a bonding connection. So this is where there's an existing perceived similarity that allows connections to occur naturally. So you don't need an outside intervention to enable that connection. It's just going to happen, like if you're in the same friendship group or the same family, for example. And bridging, which is represented by that link from the one set of blue dots to the other, this is connections between social groups, so people who you wouldn't necessarily naturally connect with. So that might be across an organisation or across a sector. So there's a perceived gap between you that is bridged by a specific action, like a conference, for example. And then linking, which is up to the red dots. This linking is about connections across different levels of power or authority. So it might be between a funder and a recipient of funding, or someone who is a decision maker or a policy maker and someone who's trying to influence those decisions or those policies. And it can be about, you might be giving access to power in that relationship, or you might be receiving it. So don't worry if that doesn't all hugely make sense. We'll hopefully make this a kind of a key part of evaluating access over the years. But what I'm going to do is just give you a bit of a survey, which will take a few minutes to fill out, which will invite you to think about the characteristics of the network and also go through each person who's attending the conference and tick whether you have a connection with those and how you would qualify that connection, whether it be bonding, bridging, or linking. So you're going to see a long old list of names, but you will be able to skip many of them if you don't already have a connection with that person. So don't be overwhelmed by it. And if you're not sure about what type of connection, just go with your gut instinct. It's not a kind of an objective truth. It's about our perceptions. Okay, great. Well, I will hand over to Patrick to talk us a bit more about the Access project.
Thanks, Peter. Can you bring up the slides then? That's probably the easiest way forward in terms of time. Brilliant, okay. So I'm just going to take the next 10 or 15 minutes or so up to the first break to do a general introduction to Access in some ways, because I know we've got quite a disparate audience here today. There's some people who obviously helped out writing the bid, and this stuff is probably going to look all too familiar in some ways. But for other people who are broader members of the partnership or who are interested in Access and coming along for the first time, I thought it was quite useful just to set out the basic parameters of who's involved and what we're doing and why before we got into the programme. And the reason for that is that the Assembly programme doesn't map exactly onto the Access work tasks and work plan. There are things we'll be doing over the next couple of years that we're not necessarily discussing today and tomorrow, and I wanted everybody to be aware of those things as well. So anyway, here's a little introduction, and yeah, I'm really, really sorry not to be there in person. In fact, I'm really quite gutted. But, you know, in terms of inclusion, it is great that I can actually be part of it in some shape or form, and it is great to see 20 or more people online too, who presumably would never have been able to participate otherwise. So I'm glad we've been able to balance different abilities to participate both in person and online. So yes, if we could move on to the second slide, please. And it's funny because I've done quite a lot of these slide presentations so far describing the project. I usually finish with this slide. But actually, I was thinking about how to start this presentation today, and I thought it's really the most important slide. And the reason why it's the most important slide is that, you know, we're quite a disparate group here today. We're from different parts of the country, different sectors, different career stages, different disciplines. But I think there are two things that bring us all together. And one is the sense of urgency that we are living in the midst of climate and environment crises, and we have to respond. We are aware of the seriousness of the problem. We can't pretend that we don't know what's going on or that we're not aware that it was important. But I think the other thing that we share in common is a belief that social science is absolutely key to tackling those problems. And that's part of the rationale for placing people at the heart of climate action and putting social science at the heart of climate action as well. Now, the reason why we still need to shout up and down about that, I think, is because all too often maybe that's forgotten about. We think that the solutions to environmental problems come from technological fixes, whether it's electric vehicles or hydrogen or carbon capture and storage or whatever. There's a sense that technologies are somehow outside the realm of society and communities, etc. And even the way we think about nature sometimes, it compartmentalizes the environment over here and people and communities and culture and society over there. And those kinds of discourses and perspectives can neglect the input of the social sciences in understanding the problem, framing the problem, but also thinking about how to tackle them and to formulate solutions. So those two things I think are really crucial. This has been labelled the decade of action, the period between now and 2030. We can all get fixated on 25-year plans, 2050 targets, but if we wait until 2045 to start acting, we're not going to meet those targets, so they're going to be much, much harder to reach. So this decade is absolutely crucial, and it's already 2022. And the 5 years of access spans that decade, this crucial decade, 2022 to 2027. So I hope, and I think we all share the hope, that access can be part of the solution to that. It can be part of a broader series of actions by this community of people that help to address these environmental problems we face through the mobilization and the visibility of social science in all of their diversity in different ways. So that's the starting point. Next slide, please. So what is Access trying to do? And I freely admit that these objectives are, they're evolving all the time as we better understand ourselves. Access is by no means a typical project. It's not a research project. We're not trying to produce lots of new journal papers, etc. We're doing something different. So what is it we're trying to achieve here together? Well, firstly, to champion environmental social science through positive leadership, guided by key principles of co-production, equality, diversity and inclusion, and sustainability. Secondly, to develop and coordinate a network of interdisciplinary environmental scientists and social scientists across very different career stages and sectors. Okay? To empower social scientists to flourish in interdisciplinary contexts alongside other forms of expertise, other forms of knowledge, to work collaboratively and responsibly with decision makers, policy makers, to turn social science evidence into actionable insights. And finally, to work reflexively all the way through this, to produce new learning, new outputs. They might be new tools like the public engagement tracker we'll hear about later this afternoon, new frameworks for interdisciplinarity that put social sciences at the heart of cross-disciplinary working, transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary working, and to develop ways of communicating this that actually work for the target audiences we're interested in. One of the key challenges Access faces is to work in a timescale that fits the stakeholders we need to work with. Academic projects go on for years and peer review takes ages. By the time you've produced your published knowledge, policymakers have often moved on to the next pressing concern. How do we bring about environmental social science capacity in a more agile, timely way, and yet maintain the rigor that we need to have in order to be considered to be experts? So those are huge challenges, but ones that we are looking forward to facing over the next 5 years or so. Next slide, please. So this just gives you a very brief sketch of what it is we will be doing over the next 5 years in terms of specific tasks. We have 4 main work packages and 3 cross-cutting themes. The first work package on the left and the middle is in a way a kind of a looking back review task, and it fits nicely with the interdisciplinary discussion that we're just about to have at 3 o'clock. So how does social science fit into interdisciplinary environmental action, teaching, research? How does it fit? There's a long-standing concern that the social sciences tend to get bolted on at the end. We don't tend to lead interdisciplinary initiatives. They tend to be funded by other UKRI bodies like NERC or EPSRC, led by engineers or natural scientists. And we tend to get siloed sometimes in dealing with the behavioural stuff or the public engagement stuff. So how do we break out of those boxes? And how do we enable early career researchers to flourish in those kind of interdisciplinary contexts? And that's what the second work package is about at the top there. It's about enabling and empowering capacity building in early career researchers, but not only that, with all social scientists. One of the things I've learned since the project started is that many academics really have an idea of policy making that's a bit of a black box. We don't really know what goes on inside government departments, and it is very complex and difficult to understand some of the time. But the fact is, there are a lot of social scientists working inside agencies and government departments, and we can develop and coordinate our work with them, and we can have two-way interactions so that we have secondments in both directions, we can put up masterclasses, and we are also hoping to put up something called a transdisciplinary leadership college that I hope will be one of the legacies of the project by building a network of leaders from across sectors, academia, policy, industry, civil society, etc., who can take forward this agenda beyond the lifetime of the project. The third work package is about agile response. It's about horizon scanning, new research questions for the future. And we also have a sizable flexible fund to the value of £1 million that will be released over the next 5 years to try and bring new concepts, new ideas, new methods to the fore that can experiment with interdisciplinarity, knowledge co-production, rapid response, etc. And finally, all of this work has to be underpinned by an exchange of data, an exchange of insights, a web platform that can enable social science to be much more visible than it has been before, and to explain and to get across those messages about what we have found, what our key findings are, and make them easily accessible and digestible to people from across different sectors. And the public engagement tracker that we're going to hear more about this afternoon is very much part of that, about bringing social science to society and engaging people in a visually rich way, in an attention-grabbing way, about latest trends in social media. I've mentioned that there are 3 cross-cutting themes. They are knowledge co-production, which is absolutely at the center of the way of working within Access. We're not intending to simply come up with some reports, hand them over to people in other sectors, and then hope that they understand them and get on with it. We've already forged, for example, a very close working relationship with ESRC colleagues through monthly meetings. And we hope to do the same with policy colleagues through a policy working group that we're intending to set up towards the second half of the year. And it's through those relationships, trust, regular meetings, that we understand each other, we build these connections and enable evidence co-production for impact and delivery. And in terms of equality, diversity, inclusion, and sustainability, they are there because we won't have any credibility unless we can deliver the Access objectives in a way that fits those principles. And we seek to have a positive influence, not just on our own project, on our own partnership, but across the social science community in showing how you can do knowledge co-production in ways that are also supportive of EDI and sustainability goals. So we'll set up an ECR network. We also have an international advisory board that meets once a year. And we have a team of postdocs. Not all of them are currently in place. They're coming in place soon, so we're still recruiting. But we will be, hopefully, with everyone on board by the end of the summer, and then be able to progress with full speed from there. Next slide, please. So one of the reasons we can be reasonably confident, I hope, to achieve these lofty goals is because we have a fantastic team. We have 12 members of our senior leadership team, and that's the very dark blue bit in the middle here. There's a lot of detail in this slide, so you may or may not see your name there or your organization. But it is there, and it's just to give you an idea that when Birgitta and I put the bid together last summer, we decided that if Access was going to be successful, we needed to have both depth and breadth. We needed to reach across disciplines, across organizations and sectors, across parts of the country, and that's why we put this leadership team and this broader array of co-investigators across different environmental speciality topics and the broader partnership together as well. And I'm thrilled that there are so many people from that broader partnership and beyond who are attending this meeting, and I think this partnership is likely to grow over the next 5 years, and I'm really pleased to see that. So we are a big team, and that brings challenges as well. We've just done the social capital survey. It'd be interesting to see what the strength of the connections are at this very early stage. But we have 4 or 5 years to go, so there's plenty of time. And I hope we can draw strength and bring some coordination and cohesion to that network so we can work together successfully to achieve our common objectives. Next slide, please. Right, I'm nearly finished now, you'll be glad to hear. And I'm running out of puff, as you might expect from somebody who's not quite 100%. So just to draw your attention to the 4 main nuggets of the agenda over the next 2 days. I know not everybody is staying for the whole stint, but basically we have 4 big themes. Interdisciplinarity this afternoon with some recognized experts who have lots of experience in spanning different disciplinary boundaries and really thinking very carefully about the challenges and opportunities involved in doing that. We'll have breakout groups that allow everybody, I hope, to participate in those discussions. We will be talking about data exchange and the public engagement tracker later on with the team who will be developing that. Tomorrow morning, we've got evidence co-production with policymakers. I'm really interested to hear from the policy fellows themselves, often early career researchers, what's it like to be parachuted into DEFRA or the Welsh Government for a period of time, and how do people flourish in that environment? How does it work? And then finally, we'll be finishing tomorrow afternoon with some horizon scanning in terms of scoping new research topics. Now, there's a picture on the right. I'm not really very good with visuals on my slides, but I thought I really needed to put something in at the end. And there's a very simple message with that image. And that's that let's not get fixated too much about the 4 key themes that we're discussing today and tomorrow, because it's the bits in between that are just as important. We've got regular tea and coffee breaks, and there'll probably be a bit more cake than there might have been because I'm not attending in person, so I hope you enjoy the food. We've got a nice dinner tonight and hopefully a comfortable hotel for people to stay in. And I really want people to make the most of those bits in between, because actually they're not bits in between. They're absolutely crucial for bringing us together, forging those connections, and hopefully making new relations and figuring out who we are and working together as a team across the next few months and years of Access as we go forward. So without further ado, I think it's a tea break time, so hope you enjoy the cake, at least those people who are there in person. I'm not sure what the rest of us online are going to be snacking on, but we'll be back at 3 o'clock to hear from Fern, from Nikki Beaumont, from Benjamin Sobacool, and Pete Bailey, the Environment Agency, to take forward the discussion about interdisciplinarity. So thank you very much indeed.